This is a presentation of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
If you want your child to live longer, healthier life of quality, of character, and excellence, then you should have them play football. The great Vince Lombardi said that you can never achieve perfection, but if you chase perfection, you might just catch excellence.
Greatness is not a sports term, it's a life term.
You know, it teaches you that nobility of defending and working for somebody else. It teaches you about respect for yourself, about respect for your teammate, and ultimately, it teaches you about respect for your opponent.
The respect of my peers, my teammates, my coaches is really why you play the game.
You learn diligence, because once you're on that team, you gotta start working real hard. And you learn integrity, because you gotta know right from wrong, you gotta know the rules, you gotta know, your role and what you have to do.
You've got knocked down to not ever waver from what you believe in, and to not ever waver from the goal that you've set.
You have to have courage, because just like Tony Dungy said, sometimes you're gonna get knocked down.
To pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
Perseverance, everybody has to overcome adversity. You learn this in this game.
The ups and downs of the game, those are all parts of life.
You learn commitment. Once you're on that team, you learn that, it's really special to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And this incredibly strange thing that when you surrender yourself to a community of others, that you actually become more relevant, not less.
I've learned as much from tough losses as I have from great wins. In fact, you appreciate the great wins a lot more because of the tough losses.
Love. It probably doesn't seem like you're talking about love all the time. But frankly, that's what you're teaching.
Each man and woman has an opportunity to impact human being as they walk through life. But it takes more than just yourself, it takes a village of people. And with me, it was truly a village, because no one gets to the top by themselves. So when the opportunity presents itself in your life, choose to be the difference maker in this village.
The ups and downs of the game, the turmoil, the knowing that every week could be one thing good or one thing bad affects the outcome. Those are all parts of life.
Perfect. And with that, I'd like to welcome everybody to Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for our latest installment of the Heart of a Hall of Famer series, today featuring Pro Football Hall of Famer, Gold Jacket, Mr. Will Shields. And my name is Mike, and I'll be moderating today's program. And the mission statement of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's how we start out each one of our programs. That mission statement is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values that we promote, you saw some of them there in the video, but more specifically, it's those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And I'm excited to hear, and I hope you are too, how those values, along with others, have impacted Mr. Shields' life, both on the football field as well as off. And before we get into that discussion, I do need to thank a few people first. First of all, I'd like to thank our folks at Extreme Networks for all they do for us here at the Hall of Fame and for schools all across the country. I'd like to thank our teachers, our administrators, for opening your classrooms and embracing the ideal that this message is important to our youth. Thirdly, I'd like to thank our students, because literally without you guys, there is no program today. You guys get to ask all the questions. So I'm excited to hear what questions you've done some research on and what you've chosen to ask Mr. Shields today. Lastly, before I turn it over to him, I just want to close with a quote from the end of his enshrinement speech in 2015. You saw a little bit of it there in the video, but I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right. It says, and I quote, "It's an honor being named into the Hall of Fame. It's having those 10 letters added to your name, but it takes more than just yourself. It takes a village of people. And with me, it was truly a village, because no one gets to the top by themselves. Someone had to push, prod, and pull me to the next level, help me walk through the tough steps, and be forever grateful. Each man and woman has an opportunity to impact a human being as they walk through life." And with that, I'm going to unmute everyone's microphones. And if we could give a warm welcome to one of the great players of the game, one of the great men of the game, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Gold Jacket, Mr. Will Shields. Perfect. I know I could have kept him going for a while there, but we need to have time for our opening remarks on our program days. So with that, Mr. Shields, any opening remarks you have for the group today?
Well, first of all, thanks for letting me be here today. I appreciate it. I'm excited. I'm a computer guy, so I like looking at all this tech stuff. It sort of makes me excited to be able to communicate with so many people at one time. To be able to be a part of this is very unique within itself. But it's also an honor just to be a part of the Hall of Fame and be a part of this great program. To get a chance to have each of you to ask questions to find out what's next in your life, what's your next goal, and maybe how did I get to mine to help you get to yours. And that's really the most important part, is being able to give you that knowledge or give you that idea of, hey, it didn't start off perfect for all of us. We all had the ups and downs and the tough parts of life, and that there's other things that can actually work to motivate you to get to that next level. So for me, it was my sophomore year. I decided to change the way I worked out, the way I trained, the friends I kept. All of that changed me into a better person. I made a goal in life that I wanted to be the best that I could be, even as an offensive lineman. You know, not the most glamorous position in the world, but for us, we love it. We love helping other people get to their goals at the same time. So from that, I'd love to actually just open it up to questions and different things so that we can move forward and I can get as much information to you as we can.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And before we get right into questions, just to remind anyone and those you don't know, if you're doing any social media today, please use our handle here at the Hall of Fame, which is @ProFootballHOF, and please use the hashtag #HOFValues. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to questions. So let's start right there with the students in front of you, Mr. Shields. If we have a student there from Ewing Marion to kick the program off.
Who's our moderator here? Yes, sir. Something that inspired me. Basically, what inspired me was the opportunity to compete at a high level. I used to watch football in middle school and everything else, and we used to watch the Dallas Cowboys at that time, and we used to watch them play, and I was that kid that sort of looked at the guy and goes, yeah, that guy's really good, but I can block him, you know? So I sort of set that goal early of, hey, I think that guy is really good, but I'm going to be just as good or better than him. But it was actually other guys in the game. I used to watch Ed Too Tall Jones. I used to watch those guys, and they gave me opportunities to actually look at being a better athlete. And, you know, I wanted to work to be the best I could be in that goal. When I was a sophomore or junior, I didn't have the aspirations to look at colleges and things of that nature. I just sort of fell into that niche mold of, because I worked hard enough, it gave me the opportunity to get to that next level. And so that's what really sort of helped motivate me and also keep me looking forward to that next goal, the next rung of getting to that next level.
Perfect. Hey, it's a great question. Kick it off. Let's go out now to Santa Fe 5th and 6th grade Career Center. Megan out there, if you have a student with a question, let's go out to you guys.
Hey, I'm Cade from Newton, Kansas, and I wanted to know, what qualities do you believe it takes to be successful in all areas of life?
You know, I think what it takes to be successful, one thing is hard to think about right now. You have to start with setting a goal. You start with a small goal and you build your way up to it, and then you go from that point. I've always noticed people that have goals tend to be a little bit more focused than those that are just sort of, hey, I'm happy to be here today. This is life. This is how we're going to go. And you start early in life. You start setting little things that sort of build up. And once you accomplish one, it becomes sort of a big ball that rolls down the hill and picks up pace and everything else, because it becomes a habit. And the thing you want to do is create positive habits, and that actually makes you a better person, a better rounded person across the board.
Perfect. Let's go out to Alta Vista. We got a couple students there. Looks like they're mulling around the gym a little. If we have a student there ready with a question. As soon as I went, they all backed away from the camera. We'll come back to you guys maybe. Let's go out to let's see here. Let's go out to Burke. Lori, do we have a student there ready with a question?
We do. Nessa Madra Trivia.
What do you think your main gold standard of character was on the field, and how did you show it?
Could you hear that?
What do I think my main what?
Gold standard of character was on the field, and how did you show it?
So for your knowledge, Ms. Shields, our gold standards of character are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. So which one do you think played the most important part on the field for you?
Well, I think it's a combination, and what made it difficult is, what I guess different is that being an offensive lineman, we had to go and play against some guys that had some different kind of characters when they're on the field. They were more unruly. They love to talk trash. They love to be in your face kind of things. And for you to keep yourself basically in that calm, relaxed kind of state and still play at a high level and know what kind of intensity to have, that was sort of the piece that you had to put together as far as playing the game. But I think one of them would have to be, that integrity piece of knowing that every day that you stepped out there and played the game, that each person knew that you were going to put your best foot forward.
And Mr. You said about every time you step out there to play the game, your teammates need to put the best foot forward. But a lot of times kids and fans in general don't realize how much work goes in off the field. Can you talk about that kind of level of respect between teammates when they know you're putting the work in on, Wednesday morning or Tuesday afternoon? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I was one of the guys that sort of set my own standards. I was the first one in and the last one to leave as far as when we came into the gym. So I was there at 6:15 in the morning. I started off with my workouts. Then you have a meeting. Then you have breakfast. Then you have practice. And then you have another meeting after that. And what we always had is we had the breakfast crew right after that. We'd study more film. What made our job so unique is that unlike most other people's jobs, we are on film 24/7. So pretty much everything we do is studied. So anytime we hit the field, there's a film or camera right in front of you. Imagine when you go to school every day, if there was a camera sitting over your shoulder that was sort of going, hey, for the next 3 hours, we're going to sort of watch and see exactly what you do. And so that's sort of where you had to sort of take that into mind and understand that each guy is different. Everybody's different. You're all from different backgrounds and different places, and you have different home situations. So you still have to sort of have the understanding of being able to deal with a person that might not be let's say, the most calm person in the world. You might have that guy that loves to pick on people kind of thing. And so you still got to deal with all those different aspects of life, but it's also contained in one locker room. And so that is the hard part about being able to do that and know that you have to handle every social issue at the same time, but it's in a sort of constrained point of view being in a locker room every day.
Very good. Let's go then out to Johnson Elementary. Do we have a student there ready with our next question? We see you waving.
Has your character affected you?
And can you repeat that one more time for me?
How has your character affected you?
Mr. Steels, the question was, how has your character affected you? So I think you can take that a number of different ways.
Well, my character affected me in different ways. Let's say from high school, as an individual, just sort of being a kid, trying to figure out what to do to make the right and wrong question, the answers, saying, hey, do I hang out with this guy? Do I hang out with that guy? Or do I stay at home? Do I decide to go work out today compared to not going out to work out? And then from that point, it goes into the college part where you have classes, you're on your own for the first time, where, you can try to make that decision. Am I going to get up to go to class? I don't have mom or dad there to sort of dictate what I'm doing on that day-to-day basis. And then from that point, you go to the pros where you have to sort of dictate your whole schedule from top to bottom. I have a whole off season to figure out, hey, am I going to work out early or I'm going to take those time and relax and not do as much? And I think it came back to the simple fact of knowing that on and off the field that you had to be the best individual you can be because it affected what your livelihood and what you wanted to accomplish in life. So what I did is spent most of my time during my off season building up different parts of, let's say, a foundation that worked with kids and youth throughout the Kansas City area. At that point, and actually when I was in the pros, I had children. So I poured my time into my kids. So those are the things that you have to sort of make that decision on what kind of character person are you going to be. Do you want to be known as a person that does positive things in the community, or do you want to be known as a guy that's, just sort of hanging out, causing trouble here and there and not necessarily trying to do the right thing across the board. And that sort of tests your character. And fortunately, I was actually had a great teammates, and I could actually pull some of those guys along with some of the events we did. So I would say, hey, we're going to have a celebrity waiter night where we're going to raise money for battered and abused women and children. So for me, I was sort of rubbing off on these guys saying, okay, we're going to go do an event as a fundraiser to help not only bolster your individual character, but also get these guys involved to understand that say, hey, you know, I might have some problems here or there, but it could be worse. There could be other things that could be more pressing as far as in my life that I don't have. And also, you know, the other part of it is that they have to look at it and say, they actually paid you to play a game for your sport. I mean, that's the sweetest thing in life that you can ever get to is that, you know, they paid you to play a game that you love since you were a little boy. We used to have a great strength and conditioning guy that would actually say, only in America can they pay you to play a football game and you can just go home and enjoy it and that kind of thing and make your family as wise as you can get. So to me, that's that character piece, being able to choose the right path to take at the right time. Because we all have that choice piece. You know, it's not, hey, he or she made me do it. No, you could have chose to go home. And I use this story that I had when I was a kid. My parents went out of town. And this is, of course, one of those stories that, you know, you got in trouble and everything else because it should have happened that way. Parents are out of town. Parents told me not to leave the house. I left the house with a friend of mine. A friend of mine chose, hey, you get in my car, you go where the car goes. At that point, I should have got out of the car, walked home, and so then I would have been at home and not got in trouble because my parents had went out of town. Instead, I stayed in the car, went to a party, fell asleep at the party, believe it or not, so I didn't even get to have fun at the party, woke up, came home, parents were back. So that lets you know that some of the choices you make is not going to be, you know, it's going to be that, hey, should I not? But if you got that deep down feeling, gut in your stomach saying, hey, I should do this instead of do that, that's testing your character. And that's one thing that I think that, you know, fortunately, like I said, nobody's perfect. We all have good, bad, or indifferent. But you have to sort of come back to and say, hey, make more good choices than you do bad choices.
And Mr. Shields, you talked there a lot about peer pressure. And sometimes we hear more often about negative peer pressure. But you spoke there through your Will to Succeed Foundation, how you were an example of positive peer pressure to some of your teammates. Who were some people in your life that you looked to for that positive peer pressure or role models that kind of made sure you were staying on the right path when maybe you were tempted to get in that car to go to that party again?
Well, I think more or less that was my parents. I mean, Dad came home and he basically put down the law from that point forward. Being a military kid, you know, he didn't play. So it was one of those choices that I knew not to make from that point forward. But I did have a lot of other people that were part of my life. I had teachers, I had counselors, I had different things that I could go through. More or less for me was my coaches. You know, you had the coaches because you spent so much time with them that you got to know them on a personal level. And I got a chance to be able to ask those questions of, hey, I got a scenario for you. What if you did this and you did that and you did this? And they gave you your best scenario. One of the closest people in my life was my actual vocal music teacher. And so I used to lean on her in high school and ask questions of, hey, I've got this going on and that going on. What scenario? How does it fit? And so you find good people to be around, and that makes a big difference in your life also.
Perfect. With that, let's go out to Stony Point. We have Coach Ray out there with a group of students. Do we have a student right there with our next question, Coach?
What are some events that helped you make your character? Events that helped you make your character.
And the question, sir, was what are some events that helped shape your character?
What really helped, there's quite a few different events. One of them, let's go to two in high school. The first one was there's a great basketball player named Len Bias. Fortunately, he made a bad decision and he was drafted in the first round, getting the opportunity to play basketball with Larry Bird. Larry Bird was going to take his off season to work with this young kid to train him because he thought he was the next guy that was going to make them win more championships. The kid made a bad decision and he ended up dying. He ended up passing. But with that being said, his mother came and spoke to us. And she came in high school and it was one of those emotional feelings when you had a speaker up there in front of you and she had lost her son. And she's telling the story about, hey, I've done everything right I could do for my son. and she had these long fingernails, and her hair was back, and you could tell she's rushing her hair, going this and going, you know, my son, I've done everything I could for him. I've built him up. I was part of his life, and we were close to being where we needed to be. But one wrong decision changed his life. When I listened to her talk and I felt her pain and I felt her anguish that she was going through, it touched me to think about, hey, there's certain things in life that I am not going to do. There's certain things in life I don't want to be a part of. And that sort of reiterated it and brought it into perspective of just one time of certain things can change your life. And I didn't want to be that next guy or that next person to hear a story about of something happening of that nature. The second one was actually a pro football player that came and spoke at our championship banquet. He was a guy that fell on tough times. He had, you know, different things that went through in his life. He was in the league. He got kicked out of the league. He couldn't come back. And he gave us his insight of, hey, these are the things that led me to where I ended up today. I'm here speaking to you to tell you what not to do. And so it was those two big events that sort of shaped part of my character. As far as speakers or person that came in as sort of that sort of set it down and said, I am reality of what could be in the future. And then from that point, of course, having those mentors around you to sort of bring that into fold, because it was that teacher, that was that mentor that brought in your life. And so that made a big difference as far as shaping your character of what you want to be and what you don't want to be. Especially this day and age with, you know, having cell phones and everything else that goes along, you have to make good choices because everyone has a camera on their shoulder. So it makes you have to make better choices nowadays than even we did when we were growing up, because at that point we didn't have those different things.
Yeah. All right, let's go then out to Santa Fe Trail. Kathleen, if you have a student there ready with our next question.
Yep.
Well, she's got the Kansas City Chiefs shirt on too. I love it.
Is it?
Are you
What character trait would be best for school?
Oh.
So the question is, which of the character traits of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence do you think plays the most important role in your schoolwork and your life at school?
Well, I think it's commitment. You know, that's the hard part for us as young kids, is to commit to it. I think as we get to a point, and actually I have a teenager at home, and I have another one, a couple that's in college, and I actually asked him, I said, well, why don't you just do this all the time? And he goes, well, you know why I don't do this all the time? Because once I show you I can do it, it's expected. And that's the hardest thing for people to understand, is that commitment piece is what makes it even better, because now you expect more from yourself than someone else do. And as long as you can get to that point, you'll always better yourself as a person. But if somebody else expects more of you than you do of yourself, then basically you're working against yourself. And I think that's something that's very important as far as when you go to school or anything you do, is actually being committed to it is one of the main goals. And it's hard to get certain people to commit to everything. But you can commit to your schoolwork and say, hey, I'm going to commit to this, and I want to see what's going to happen. And then you just sort of go from that point, and then you grow from there.
Let's go then back out to the live students right there in front of you, Mr. Shields, if we have another question from that group of students.
Questions, anyone?
Don't be shy now.
Tell you, man, this group is so quiet, it's unbelievable.
Were you comfortable with your position when you played for the Chiefs?
He said, what did I have to work through to become an NFL player? Okay, first and foremost, we had to go through high school, then high school to college. But when I got to college, played at University of Nebraska, and had basically, they didn't like offensive linemen from the University of Nebraska when I came out. So there was the stitch. So I won the Outland Trophy, which is the best interior lineman player in the country. But I was slotted to be a third-round pick. And so I felt like I was cheated or gypped or what have you, because I was considered the best lineman at that point, but I was going to go in the third round. And it came on what the teams needed, not necessarily of my mentality. So what I had to fight through is the simple fact of it is that I wasn't the fastest kid. So I didn't run at that point, the year we came out, we had a big guy named Willie Rofe that came out. He ran a 4.8 or 4.9 40 at 320 pounds. That's flying. That's fast. And so for me, I was trying to catch up to these other guys. So first of all, I'm 6'2". He's 6'5". Well, he might be 6'6". I mean, you know, he's taller than me. He's 320 pounds. At that point, I was 300 pounds barely. I ran a 5'1". He ran a 4'8". Not saying that we were going against each other, but these are things that I had to work uphill to sort of get to where I could play against him. He benched 225 at least 45 times. I benched 225 16 times. So you see the difference of what the uphill battle was. Now, the great thing about it, though, is that I took these measurements of saying, okay, if I'm a third-round pick, I got to work just as hard to get to where I needed to be. So my job was to make every team that didn't give me an opportunity understand that I was better than what they thought I was. So I would work harder than everyone else. I'd take 2 weeks off during the off season, and then I'll go back to working for the next year. So most guys say, hey, I'm going to take a month off or a month and a half, let my body get back to points. I took 2 weeks because I knew that at that point, every year there was somebody else trying to come in and take my job. So that's what I had to do as far as uphill battle, as far as building that up, is saying I'm going to be the best I can be every week, week in and week out, to sort of prove to everybody that I deserve to be here.
Very good. And kind of put that into a little bit of context, we're talking about not being, you know, the number one overall pick. I drafted in the 3rd round. Guys were taken before you. There are more undrafted rookies in the Hall of Fame than number one overall draft picks. And that just goes to speak that there's a lot more that goes into playing this game than athletic ability. We always like to say our Hall of Famers, they didn't fall out of bed great. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes on outside the football field that you guys don't see that make these gentlemen who they are and made them Hall of Famers. I mean, there's been over 28,000 guys to play the game of pro football, and there's only 303 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is elite company, and I hope you guys are enjoying the program so far. You're getting the chance to talk to one of those 303, one of the greatest players to ever put on a helmet. I know I am. I'm enjoying listening to the program. I got my notes going, so we'll keep it going with that. We'll go back out to let's go back out to, let's see, I think we have a school we didn't go to, Santa Fe. I see a gentleman there in a blue hoodie. We have a question from Megan right there. Going once. Let's see here.
Were you comfortable with your position as a lineman?
The question, were you always comfortable with your position on the offensive line?
You know, only when I played organized football. I'll just say it that way. So when we played organized football, when we put pads on and everything else, that's the only time I was fine with being a offensive lineman. When we played pickup games and we played street ball or whatever we call it, I never played offensive lineman. I was always a wide receiver, a tight end, trying to catch the ball here and there. What I call is well-rounding yourself as an athlete. Don't pigeonhole yourself as being just an offensive lineman. So in my mind, I am a little guy trapped in a big man's body. So basically, I can do everything that anyone else can do, whether their size or what have you. Sometimes it might be a little slower, sometimes it might be faster, but I could still do it. So for me, I was comfortable with being a lineman once we put the pads on and once we got serious about the season. But when we did anything else outside of that, I was always a different position.
Very good. Let's go back out to Santa Fe 5th and 6th grade career center there. Megan, do we have another student ready with a question?
What moment of your football career has been most meaningful?
What memory of my football career has been the most meaningful? You know, there's a lot of them. That's what makes it hard. There's so many different moments in your football career. But I'd say if I was in college, one of them would be we had a teammate that was deaf. And he actually, you know, instead of, you know, clapping, you actually wave your hand this way and they know it's clapping. So we were sitting here and it was a senior day and we come out and the whole stadium is silent and all you see is the hands waving. It was one of those feelings of, you know, everybody being relevant for one guy, giving him that feeling of, you know, hey, this is what it's about for us to be a part of this group, team, or whatnot. Let's say pro career, there's a lot of great memories. You know, there's memories of huddle talks of guys that gave great speeches while we were playing. The other one would be, I guess, getting to the championship game my rookie year. and knowing that I had in my huddle 2 other Hall of Famers as my rookie quarterback and running back to say, hey, I got a chance to play with guys that I actually used on my video game and to be teammates with. Those were little things that you sort of take advantage of and say, that's those special memories, those special pieces, those special moments. And then, of course, the simple fact of being drafted. I mean, you never know when it's going to happen, but you still got the opportunity to play the best game that you could play.
Let's go back out to Burke Elementary. Lori, if we have a student there ready with a question.
Yep, at least like. What kept you going when you lost the game?
What kept me going when I lost a game? We have that 24-hour rule. That's what we sort of use it. We say, hey, we got 24 hours. Sit, think about it, understand what went on, and basically more or less learn from it and not dwell on it. I've noticed a lot of people these days get on certain tangents of, hey, this is bad, this is terrible, this is this is that, and we constantly keep going over the negative things of it, but we just need to learn from it and actually move on from there. So, hey, let's say I've got a bad grade in math. What are you going to do? You have to work on it to get it better. So you learn from the mistakes you made, and then you move on from it. So that's sort of where we take the same sort of premise in football or any sport in itself of, hey, it's a bad loss, but we're going to actually learn from it, and hopefully it gives us motivation for the next week.
Let's go back out then to Johnson Elementary. We have another student there with a question for Mr. Shields.
Have you ever had any type of academic problems?
The question, sir, if you heard it, was, have you ever had any type of academic issues or struggles during your career?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Let's say my qualification for college let's start back that far. Basically, you have the ACT that you have to use to qualify for college. I had to take it multiple times and use the actual combined score to get eligible to get into the University of Nebraska. So big tests were a big struggle for me. To sit down and know I've got 5 hours to sit and take a test was one of those issues, and I start stressing out about it and not being able to do the things you needed to do. So I had to go back and take the test multiple times to get in. And then, of course, my first semester being away from home. Think about this. No parents there to tell me to get up, when to study, when not to study, all of that. And I'm on my own. I'll go to study hall, but will I really get what I needed to do? So my first semester actually went on academic probation as a freshman, because I didn't know exactly what I was in for or how to prepare myself for the next level. And so from that point forward, I said, you know what, I got to get this down and I got to get it done. So for the next 3 years, I didn't even go home. I stayed home to make sure I got my grades and everything else and got a chance to graduate. I graduated in 4 years. I wanted to make sure I graduated at the same time that my football career could start off, so I didn't have to worry about that as I moved forward onto my next career.
Let's go then back out to Stony Point. Coach Ray, if we have a student there with our next question.
What character qualities do you believe it takes to be a Hall of Fame player?
What characters and qualities does it take to be a Hall of Fame player? What's really cool about being a Hall of Fame player is that you have to do a lot of different things, but it's based off of your on-field presence of what you've done on the field, whether it's, being an MVP or being, the guy that's actually made a difference in your teams. Those things make a big difference, but you also have to play within a standard that's higher than everyone else, because that's one of those pieces that are used as far as, how well do you play the game. The outside factors as far as off the field things are a great piece of it, but it's not really brought into what you are to get to be one of the best of the best. And so I think that's one thing you have to really work on, is being the best as you best on the field. And that makes a big difference as far as how you actually work on the field with guys, against guys, and things of that nature.
And we talked a little bit, Mr. Shields, about the odds of being in the NFL. You mentioned the 28,000 guys who have played the game. There's been millions who have played it on the youth and high school level and getting into the college level. Can you describe that moment when you got the call, got the knock on the door that you were going to be one of the few players that made it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Can you describe those emotions and those events?
Well, it was very surreal, I guess, in a sense. You worked hard, and I had coaches that led up to that said, if you keep going at the rate you're going, you might get into the Hall of Fame. You might be able to add, the 10 letters to the back of your name. At that point, you're looking at him like, yeah, whatever. I'm just playing. I'm excited to be here, that kind of thing. But then when they start calling your name and they're saying, hey, you're getting closer to that time, and then you make it all the way down to the final ballot, then you get a little nervous trying to figure out, okay, am I going to get in or am I not? Do I have the credentials to be in, or, what have I accomplished enough? Then you start looking at other guys, hey, how do I stack up to this guy? Or how do I stack up to that guy? Trying to find out, how do you fit into that little niche market of saying, hey, I could be a Hall of Famer one day. But then you get to that final market and you get to that and say, okay, I get in. And it's sort of that moment of saying, man, this is unbelievable. I am, considered one of the best to ever play in my position. And then you have to sort of take it as what it is of saying, I was the third true guard to get into the Hall of Fame. And you really don't know that feeling until you walk into this luncheon and you have all the guys that are there, and the other two guards come up to you and go, you're number 3. And he goes, you're going to be number 3 from this point on as a true guard into the Hall of Fame. And that's when you know that you've done something really, really cool. I mean, something that, that they can't take back from you, and it's part of you, and it's going to be there forever. And then when you have David, which is the guy that runs the Hall of Fame, come in and say, hey, you're going to have this bust of your face, your head, whatever, and it's going to last 20 to 30,000 years before it disintegrates or what have you, and it's going to be in this room forever. It's sort of one of those feelings of, man, you sort of made it. You made something that no one else can take from you.
Perfect. And not to correct you, sir, I mean, 20 to 30,000 years would be impressive, but we like to say 40,000 years. So
I know, I didn't want to go there, but it's pretty close.
But let's just say forever that bus will be here in Canton, Ohio, celebrating your legacy as a player and as a man of the game. So we thank you for that, and looking forward to the next 39,000 years or so. All right, let's go back out to Santa Fe Trail. Kathleen, if we have another student ready with a question.
Did you ever get stressed? How did you deal with it?
Stress. It's really funny. I just gave a speech on stress a couple of days ago. Well, what really helped me is that I got a chance to play the game on the field itself. So I really never got stressed over the game itself because I always felt prepared for it. I am what they call a prepper, and my dad's got me this way since I was little. He says you always do recon before you actually go do a lot of different things. I've sort of backtracked from that as I gotten older, but what they call about recon is basically I want to be 5 days ahead. Basically, if my teacher gave me a book in college, I would actually read 3 to 4 days ahead so that I already could understand it. Maybe I had to read it twice or different things of that nature. So I sort of prepped beforehand, so I never had those stressful moments. So I never had that part of, oh man, I didn't study for this play, or I didn't get ready for this, or I didn't know this guy could do this move. So I would do that for everything. So I would actually sit and watch videotape of guys I'm going to play against and sort of prep for them and know, okay, if he puts his hand down, he does this, he does that, he does this. So I used to prepare for a lot of different things so I didn't have to have those stressful moments. Now, of course, when you're playing the game, you have those guys that pull out moves or do things that you're not prepared for. That would probably be the only stress that was there. And then it would go away right afterwards. I think it would be if you were facing, let's say, for me, it would be facing a John Randall guy that I knew gave me trouble and I had a hard time blocking him. Then I had that stressful week. So then I would actually have to go and listen to more calming music before the game so that I wouldn't be all hyper and everything else. So that's something I would do. I'm a music fanatic, so that's what I do to sort of keep the stress away. So I'll listen to different types of music at different times of the day, and that sort of keeps me calm and cool when I do other things. So before the game, I would actually listen to music, and I'll go to sleep. And it's really funny because my teammates give me a hard time about it, and they would have to come wake me up. I say, hey, wake me up 5 minutes before we go out. They're going, what do you mean wake me up before 5 minutes before we go out? My pants are on, I'm laying in my locker, I'm knocked out, I'm asleep. I say, hey, wake me up 5 minutes and we're ready to go. And these guys are playing loud music, they're bouncing their heads all over the place and everything else, and I'm like knocked out. So then I have to have them come get me. So I handle stress differently. I use music and different things of that nature to sort of keep myself at an even keel.
Let's go back out to those students right in front of you then, Mr. Shields, if we have another question from them. I know it was a quiet group.
I got two of them here. Let's go in the back. What kind of music would I listen to? Actually, I would listen to slow R&B, basically like Brian McKnight or something like that. Something nice and mellow every once, just so that I can, sort of cool out.
We have a second question there, you said, sir?
Yeah, we do.
Let's do it.
What question do you have, sir? What question do you have? Who was the greatest player I ever faced? Greatest challenge? Mine was John Randall. John Randall, man, that dude was unreal what he could do. And he was 280 pounds, and he could move fast. He could do a little everything. And plus, he talked trash at the same time. So he tried to get into your head and, do different things like that. The first group we ever went against was the Purple People Eaters. They were like, there's actually 2 of the 4 that's in the Hall of Fame. Coleman, I'm trying to think. John Randall, he has another teammate that's in. And then the other 2, Henry Thomas, and I can't think of the other end. Yeah. But these guys would come in and they would be talking so much stuff back and forth, and they'd act like they're talking Spanish. They'd act like they're talking African. They would do a little of everything. They had fun playing the game. And so for me as a young lineman trying to figure out, what are they talking about? What are they saying? Where's he going? That kind of thing. He was a guy that gave me grief. I mean, he was a guy that I think that basically had my number, and so I had to prepare for him really hard every time I got a chance to face him.
I think the names you're looking for were Carl Eller and Alan Page. I think were the 2 main members of the Purple People Eaters. So for those of you who that's before your time, which is probably all those in attendance besides me and Mr. Shields, go home and Google the Purple People Eaters.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go back out to Santa Fe 5th and 6th grade Career Center. Megan, if we have a student ready there with another question.
How did you react to bad sportsmanship on the field?
Bad sportsmanship on the field. It depends on where it was, who it was, and how it happened. Those are the different parts of it. We didn't, of course, like it that much, but we did have a couple of players that we always knew that we had to look out for that were trying to hurt people, basically from top to bottom. So we knew we had to protect ourselves from those kind of guys that played in the NFL at that time. But we also, tried to set our own tone to where that they couldn't get in those situations. So if we had to double team a guy and push him up the field into another guy so that he couldn't do those things, that's what we would do. We'd sort of game plan for him so that we knew it in advance of what kind of player they were.
Let's go back out to Johnson Elementary. If we have another student there with a question for Mr. Shields. We're coming up front here.
How did your actions help you succeed?
Can you say it again for me a little louder?
How did your actions help you succeed?
The question, sir, is how did your actions help you to succeed?
How did what?
Your actions.
My actions?
Yeah, maybe your actions. Let's say your actions during the week. How did those help you succeed on game day?
It helped me a lot because I did a lot of visualization. So we call it the quickening. So basically, once we hit the J months, my sleep went from 7 to 8 hours to about 5. I would start to dream in football. So I would dream plays and different things of that nature. So that would actually start the action of me getting ready for the next season. So that's where I would sort of build that in and say, okay, each day I actually showed up to practice and I actually went out to practice 30 minutes before we started just to go through my footwork. And I call it foot pattern work. So what I would do is go out 30 minutes. Say, okay, I'm going to work on just using my left hand to begin with and then put my right hand later and that kind of thing. So those kind of little actions made it better so that when I got into the game, it was easy. And I could relate to other things I could do because I've already practiced them.
Let's go back out to Burke Elementary if we have a student there with our next question.
Was there ever a time you regretted playing football?
I don't think there's a time I've regretted playing football. I think there was a time in college that I was frustrated enough that I was questioning myself if I was really ready for the game or not. We played in a big game. It was like my second or third year in college. We lost to a team because we had been talked up. This other team had been talked up week in and week out since the offseason. Hey, are you going to be ready for this guy? This guy is really good. This guy is that. And so when we came to play these guys, I was already in the mindset of thinking this guy is bigger and better than everything else I've ever faced. So then the first 2 quarters, you only play half. You sort of trying to test the waters and see what happens. And then third quarter, you get after him a little bit and find out he's a human. He's a guy. He's somebody that you can face. By then, they're already up by 14 points. And so then I was sort of testing myself mentally going, am I really ready for this game or not? Am I really ready to go to the next level or not? And then from that point, I sort of took it as, at 24 to 48 hours, looked at what I'd done, looked at the film, looked at everything else and decided, okay, these are the things I'm going to work on so that this never happens again. First of all, these guys are telling me how good this guy is. He has to prove it on the field before I believe it. Even though you see on film other guys, but you're not comparing yourself to those guys that they're facing. So that's what I sort of had to do is sort of reset my mind. And every once in a while when you have your goals, you're going to have to reset your goals and reset what you have to do to make sure you're working towards that next piece of where you want to be.
And Mr. Shields, did you ever have those same feelings, your first rookie mini camp, you walk on to in there and you're seeing, Joe Montana, Marcus, these guys you said you played with on video games. Did you ever have that same kind of question of, do I belong here in that first year or so?
I did in that first year because I was trying to prove myself, but what made it difficult is that I had an offensive line coach that, first of all, he didn't want me to be drafted there. He was like, hey, I don't want you here. I want you somewhere else. But then I got there, and the first training camp or mini camp, I was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a fish out of water. I was trying to figure it out. Then I went back, saw the film, practiced a little bit at home, came back to second camp, and was a lot better. But no, at that point, I sort of figured I knew where I was going to be and I knew what I needed to do, even though I had this coach that was telling me, well, we didn't want you here. We didn't know what you were going to do. But then after my second mini camp, he brings me in his office and goes, you know what? I'm going to ride you to retirement, son. You're pretty good. So from that point, you sort of had to change his mindset of what you are and what you do. And, from that time in college, I wasn't going to let anyone else sort of deter me of saying, are you that good or are you not? It was the simple fact of me proving to them what I can do.
All right, let's go back out to Santa Fe Trail. Kathleen, if we have a student there with our next question.
Why did you start your Will to Succeed Foundation? How does it help people?
Well, I started the Will to Succeed Foundation in 1993. What was really cool about being able to start it is that I had a coach, Coach Osborne, that had started the foundation when we were in college. That worked with inner city kids there in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I wanted to do something to help as far as being part of the community. But when I came here to the Chiefs, there was about 15 different guys that were doing things in the community. And what I noticed about these guys is that they were all guys that were here for over 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So I'm going, man, if these guys know exactly the procedures to be here and be a part of the group, I know I've got to dig deep and be a part of the group. So I needed to start a foundation, be a part of the community. Basically, and once I did that, I was letting people know that I was here to stay, that I wasn't looking to just say, hey, I'm here for 1 year, looking to go somewhere else and be a part of something else. And I wanted to sort of build something here that was community-based, strong-based in that saying that, hey, we were here for the long haul.
Let's go back out to Stony Point here with another question for Mr. Shields today.
What advice can you give young people about how to develop their character?
So the question was, what advice can you give to young people on how to develop their character?
Hardly about developing your character. It's the simple fact of doing different things is one thing, because I want you to try different stuff. for those, I want you to try, which is out there. They go, okay, I want you to do vocal music. I want you to do a little soccer. I want you to do as many different things as you can so that now you become understanding of what maybe somebody that plays soccer that doesn't play football is going through. You understand somebody that plays instruments and that's not on the football field is going through. So if you learn all these different things, you'll be able to understand where they're coming from, and then you'll have more tolerance for each person, and that'll help you as far as your character building piece. And then you actually might find that you might like singing. You might actually have a gift for music. Even if you didn't think you did, you might pick up the guitar, and next thing you know, it's like second nature. But you have to try these things to actually get a piece of it, and that's where I sort of try to start with as far as young kids go.
Let's go back out to those students and right in front of you, Mr. Shields, if we have another question from them.
Oh, let's pick right there, sir. Yeah. He asked how long I was in the NFL. I played 14 seasons. Yeah, 14 years. I got another one here.
Okay.
There was a lot of different football players, but I watched the Dallas Cowboys, so that was really sort of between the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers. They were battling back and forth. So I tried to take different pieces of each one of those guys' game and sort of add it to me. So it wasn't like one particular guy. It's like, you really, when you played out in the street, you wanted to be Lynn Swann. You wanted to be the guy catching passes on the sideline, which is before your day. But he's a guy that made unbelievable catches. He did things that no one else could do. So you wanted to be that kind of a person. So those were kind of guys you followed.
And we talk about doing different things, not to interrupt you, sir. We talk about doing different things. Lynn Swann always talks about how he had to take ballet as a youth, and that's how he kind of learned how to handle himself in the air, making some of those crazy catches we see on the highlight films. Do we have another student there with a question?
Yeah. What was the first thing I did when I got what? My first NFL check? I put it in the bank. I put it in the bank. Basically, I'm one of those guys that they say I try to keep all my money in my pocket as long as I can. So I didn't go out and buy a new car. I didn't do anything for my parents. Basically, I waited for my first few years to where I got established as being an NFL player because the average is 3.5 years. And so you never know how long you're going to actually be there or how much you're going to make or not make. But I did eventually, and to a point, did get a chance to buy a car that I think I like, that I wanted to have, and that kind of thing. But it wasn't the most expensive car. It wasn't the most expensive house. It wasn't anything else like that. It was more or less living within your means so that you can have futuristic things, so that I can come do things like this without having to worry about actually having to go to work.
And we have a question from Twitter, sir. And I'll set this one up a little bit. For those of you who don't know, when you get enshrined in the Hall of Fame, you get 3 symbols of excellence. You get the bronze bust we talked about. You get the gold jacket that Mr. Shields has on right now. And you also get a Hall of Fame ring. So those are the 3 symbols of excellence that you get when you get in the Hall of Fame. So our question from Twitter is, and this is a popular one we get, Super Bowl ring or Hall of Fame ring?
Well, for me, I got a Hall of Fame ring, so I'm not going to complain whatsoever.
Very good. Very good. And there's only 303 Hall of Fame rings. They hand out, I'm not sure how many, but they handed out 50 years of Super Bowl rings. So I think the Hall of Fame one's a little more exclusive. But I might be biased as well.
I think you get paid to say that, right?
Checks in the mail. All right, let's go back out to the Santa Fe 5th and 6th grade Career Center. Megan, if we have another student with a question.
How big was your relationship with your teammates?
With our teammates, it's pretty good. But for us as offensive linemen, we're a pretty tight-knit group because we have to do everything together. We have to protect each other from when, hey, there's times that I get beat and my center has to take over and block a guy that I didn't get a chance to get done, or vice versa. So we've become pretty close as we, play together, team in and team out. And what's really cool is that we still keep in contact. It's not a day-to-day thing, but I say it's a once every other month kind of thing where you reach out to different guys in different places just to see how everyone's doing. So it's really big because they become your friends for life.
Let's go back out to Johnson Elementary if we have another student there with a question.
My question is, what was your best season as an NFL pro?
Question is, what was your best season as a NFL player?
You know, I would say my second season was probably one of my best seasons that I thought I had playing. I mean, it sort of set the tone for everything else. And so I'd start learning different things, and it just sort of adapted and sort of came together. So I would say probably my second season was the best I thought I had individually. As a team, we had 5 years there where we led the league in rushing and passing and everything like that. And that was the most fun I had as far as being an NFL player because, you know, nobody could predict where we were going to be and what we were going to do. So that was sort of the difference between, and there's also a difference between an offensive line or offensive coach and a defensive-minded coach as a head coach. So that year we did have offensive-minded coaches, so that's when I had the most fun.
Let's go back out then to Burke Elementary with another question.
What team did you want to play for growing up?
You know, growing up, I had a couple of different teams. I mean, I would have liked the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would have liked the Dallas Cowboys. And then once I got older and got closer and know how it works, any team that would take me would have been the first part of it. But I did enjoy being here and being a Kansas City Chief. And fortunately, I got a chance to be here from beginning to end. So, you know, now I have to say, hey, the Chiefs are the ones that are always me. So that's sort of my answer.
There you go. I think we have time for one more. If we go out to Santa Fe Trail, Kathleen, if we have one more student there with a question.
How do you keep calm when you get mad?
How do I keep calm? I actually, I don't know if I ever get really truly mad anymore. You know, I to a point when I was younger, I'd get angry and try to figure out ways to figure it out. But fortunately, I got a chance to play the game of football. So I got 4 seconds or 20 seconds, and then I actually got to hit somebody again. So I didn't have I could actually use that as the momentum piece and never have to get in trouble for it. And that's even better.
Very good. And with that, I think we're right up against the end of our program, sir. We have about another minute or two. Any closing remarks you have for the group on something we talked about you want to reinforce, or anything we didn't get to that you had hoped to talk about today?
Well, I just think it comes down to this. I want to say thank you guys for letting me be a part of it, but it all comes back to your choices, you know, your avenues that you decide to take and what you want to do and what you want to be. But also remember, trying different things might actually change those choices. It might benefit you so you understand where you want to be in the future. You know, for me at one point, you know, hey, I wanted to be a rapper when I was younger. That's how it worked. You know, it didn't work out, but I decided to be a football player. And so doing those different things actually helped me down the road because then I understood where I wanted to be and how I wanted to get there. And so that's something about it. Try a little different things in a positive manner so that you can understand where you can be in the future.
Very good. And, sir, from our executive staff on down, David Baker, Joe Horgan, George Veras, I know Jerry Shockey, you've worked on this program. We just like to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to visit with students, share these words of encouragement and the importance of the values of the game. So if we could all, I'm going to unmute all the microphones, give one big Hall of Fame round of applause. Thank you to Gold Jacket, Pro Football Hall of Famer. Perfect, sir. Like I said, thank you again for all those students in attendance. This will end our program. We look forward to maybe seeing some of you here in Canton, Ohio sometime. And for Mr. Shields, I'm sure we'll be seeing you and talking to you soon. So thank you again. And like I said, this will end our program for today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You got a question for me? Yeah.